My name is Maya Thompson, and at 12 years old I learned that sometimes the people who promise to protect you are the ones who leave you behind. It happened in the middle of June, the summer before 7th grade. That was the month my parents decided they needed a break. Italy, France, Spain. 30 days. They placed 2 crumpled $10 bills and a silver credit card on the kitchen counter before they left. Emergency money, my mother said casually, like she was reminding me to water the plants. Then they rolled their suitcases out the front door. I didn't know the card had never been activated. I also didn't know that 30 days later, when they returned and threw a welcome home party to show off their European vacation photos to dozens of friends and neighbors, 2 police officers would walk straight into our living room. But that's the ending. Let me tell you how it started. Before we go any further, if stories like this keep you hooked, make sure you subscribe to Women Reddit Stories so you never miss the next one. Because the truth is, everything changed the day my parents closed the door and left me standing in that house alone. The Thompson house sat on a quiet street in Austin, Texas. 2 stories. White siding. Blue shutters. My mother spent hours making sure the front lawn looked perfect. The grass was trimmed in exact lines, the flower beds edged neatly with bright red mulch. From the outside, we looked like the kind of family people envied. 2 cars in the driveway. My father's gray Tesla. My mother's white Lexus SUV. Inside, the house always smelled faintly like lavender candles. Everything had its place. Everything looked perfect. My mother, Laura Thompson, had almost 15,000 followers on Instagram. Every Sunday night she posted pictures of our family life. Smiling selfies at restaurants. Holiday decorations. Weekend brunch. Grateful for every moment, she'd write under the photos. People loved it. They commented things like, "You have such a beautiful family. Motherhood goals. You're living the dream." But if you scrolled through those photos carefully, you might notice something strange. I was barely in them. Sometimes you could see half my face in the background. Or my arm. Mostly, I just wasn't there. My father, Daniel Thompson, worked at a tech company downtown. He left the house before 7 every morning and usually came home after dark. When he walked in, he'd loosen his tie, kiss my mother on the cheek, and turn on the television. News. Sports. Weather. If my mother spoke, he nodded. If she decided something, he agreed. He wasn't cruel. He just wasn't really there. I learned early that the easiest way to exist in our house was to stay quiet. I started making my own breakfast when I was 8. By 9 I knew how to pack my own lunches. If a permission slip needed to be signed and my mother forgot, I practiced copying her signature so my teacher wouldn't ask questions. Whenever guests came over, my mom would wave a hand toward me like I was part of the furniture. "Maya's the independent one," she'd say with a light laugh. "She doesn't need much attention." Then she'd look at me expectantly. "Right, sweetie?" I always nodded. Because if I didn't, my mother would sigh like I'd just ruined her evening. I thought that was normal. I thought every kid grew up quietly orbiting their parents' lives, trying not to be inconvenient. Trying not to need too much. Trying to earn love by being easy. But I never imagined they would leave completely. 2 weeks before the trip, my mom called me downstairs. She was sitting on the couch with her laptop open. The screen showed a travel website filled with pictures of beaches and old European buildings. My dad stood by the window, staring at the backyard like he always did when he didn't want to talk. "Maya," my mom said brightly. "Your father and I are planning something exciting." I stood in the doorway. "A vacation?" I asked. She smiled. "A month in Europe. Paris. Rome. Barcelona." Her voice sounded light, almost giddy. "You're old enough to stay home." For a moment, I thought I misunderstood. Stay home, alone? My mom didn't look up from her laptop. You'll be fine. But it's a whole month. Her fingers stopped typing. Maya, she said sharply, don't be dramatic. She closed the laptop and finally looked at me. You know how to take care of yourself. I glanced toward my dad. He was still facing the window. Could Grandma come stay? I asked quietly. My mom's expression hardened. She's busy. What about Aunt Elena? Her jaw tightened. You know I don't speak to Elena anymore. I didn't know why my mom hated her sister. I only knew Aunt Elena had disappeared from our lives 5 years earlier. My mom reached into her purse. She pulled out 2 $10 bills and a shiny credit card. She placed them neatly on the kitchen counter. There, she said. $20 for snacks if you need anything. Then she slid the credit card beside the money. This is for emergencies. She leaned closer. Do not use it unless something serious happens. I nodded slowly. Good, she said, already opening her laptop again. Our flight leaves Monday morning. Monday arrived faster than I expected. The morning sun was already hot when the rideshare pulled up to the curb. My mother wore a long floral dress and sunglasses. My father loaded their luggage into the trunk. 3 suitcases. 2 carry-ons. Remember to lock the doors at night, my mom said, climbing into the back seat. And don't bother the neighbors. The car door shut. The driver pulled away. I stood in the doorway watching the car disappear down the street. I stayed there for 5 minutes. Just in case they came back and said it was a joke. They didn't. That night the house felt enormous. Every sound echoed. The refrigerator humming. The ticking kitchen clock. The wind brushing against the windows. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling until almost 3 in the morning. The next day, I opened the refrigerator. There was almost nothing inside. Half a carton of milk. 3 eggs. A loaf of bread is already turning stale. I counted my money. $20. I did the math slowly. $20 divided by 30 days. 66 cents a day. Maybe, if I just ate less. I picked up the credit card. I tried ordering pizza online. The website asked for the card number. I typed it in carefully. Transaction declined. I tried again. Declined. I flipped the card over and called the number printed on the back. A robotic voice answered. This card is not activated. I stared at the phone. Then at the 2 wrinkled $10 bills on the counter. That was everything I had. And my parents were somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean. On day 3, I walked to a grocery store 2 blocks away. I stood in the aisle doing math in my head. Ramen noodles, 75 cents. Bread, $1.49. I bought 5 ramen packets and a loaf of bread. When I got home, I divided the ramen carefully. Half a packet for breakfast. Half for dinner. On day 5, I called my mom. The phone rang 6 times before she answered. Music played loudly behind her voice. Maya, I'm at dinner, she said impatiently. The card doesn't work, I told her. I don't have enough money for food. She sighed loudly. You have $20. That's not enough for. You're being dramatic again. The line went silent. Then she hung up. I sat on the kitchen floor and cried quietly so no one could hear. Later that night, I opened Instagram. My mother had posted a new photo. She was standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, holding a glass of champagne. The caption said, Paris Nights. Living our best life. Hundreds of people had liked it. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I picked up the old tablet my mom had given me after buying a newer one. I opened the camera. Pressed record. My name is Maya, I said softly. Today is day 5. My voice trembled. My parents are in Paris. I had half a pack of ramen for dinner. I didn't know it yet. But someone was about to notice. And once they did, everything would begin to change. On day 7, someone finally knocked on the door. It was late afternoon. The sun hung low over the houses across the street, turning the pavement orange. I had just finished eating half a packet of ramen when I heard 3 slow knocks. For a second, I froze. My parents had warned me my whole life not to answer the door when they weren't home. But curiosity won. I walked down the hallway and opened it just enough to peek outside. Standing on the porch was Mr. Leonard Carter, the man who lived in the small brick house next door. He was probably in his 70s. Tall but slightly bent at the shoulders, with a white beard and wire-rimmed glasses that always slid down his nose. He lived alone with a golden retriever named Daisy. Every morning when I walked to school, he'd wave from his driveway while watering his plants. But we had never really spoken before. "Hey there, kiddo," he said gently when he saw me. His eyes moved past my shoulder, glancing inside the quiet house. "Haven't seen your parents' cars all week." He paused. "Everything okay?" I swallowed. "Yeah," I said quickly. "They're on a trip." "A trip?" His eyebrow lifted slightly. "For how long?" "A month." The words felt strange coming out of my mouth. Mr. Carter didn't say anything for a moment. His gaze dropped to my face. I realized then that I probably looked awful. My lips were cracked. My hair hadn't been brushed properly in days. And my t-shirt had the same ramen stain from the day before. "Who's staying with you?" he asked carefully. I tried to lie. "My mom's friend comes by sometimes." The lie sounded weak even to me. Mr. Carter studied my face quietly. Then he asked the question that made my throat tighten. "Have you eaten today, Maya?" I nodded quickly. Yes. That wasn't exactly a lie. I had eaten half a ramen packet. He leaned against the porch railing and scratched his beard. "Well," he said after a moment, "I made too much chili today." His voice stayed casual. "Hate to see good food go to waste." He gestured toward his house. "Would you mind helping me finish it?" I hesitated. My parents' voices echoed in my head. "Don't bother the neighbors." But my stomach twisted painfully. And the smell drifting from his house across the yard suddenly seemed stronger. "Okay," I whispered. Mr. Carter's kitchen felt completely different from mine. Warm. Bright. The windows were open and a fan hummed softly on the counter. Daisy the golden retriever wagged her tail when we walked in. A large pot of chili sat on the stove. The smell made my stomach growl so loudly I felt my face burn. Mr. Carter didn't comment. He simply filled a bowl and placed it in front of me. Then another. And a slice of cornbread. "Eat," he said gently. I did. I ate faster than I ever had before. The chili was hot and thick and full of beans and meat. I finished the first bowl in less than a minute. Mr. Carter quietly refilled it. He didn't ask questions while I ate. He just sat across the table watching Daisy rest her head on his knee. When I finally slowed down, he spoke again. "Maya," he said softly. "Where are your parents really?" I stared down at the empty bowl. The truth sat heavy in my chest. "Europe. 30 days. $20. The card that didn't work. The ramen. The phone call where my mom hung up. Everything." When I finished talking, the kitchen was silent. Mr. Carter leaned back in his chair. His face looked older somehow. "Do you want me to call someone?" he asked carefully. "The police, or a relative?" Panic shot through me. "No." The word came out too loud. Daisy lifted her head. "Please don't." Mr. Carter frowned slightly. "Why not?" "My mom said if I bother anyone, she'll send me away." The words felt small and embarrassing. He sighed quietly. I see. For a moment I thought he might ignore me and call someone anyway. Instead he rubbed his temples and nodded slowly. All right, he said. I won't call anyone right now. Relief washed through me. But then he added something that changed everything. I will bring you food every day. I looked up. And Maya, he continued gently, if something like this is happening, it's important to keep track of it. Track of what? Everything. He pointed toward the hallway. Dates. Meals. Phone calls. Anything your parents say. Why? Because sometimes the truth needs proof. I didn't fully understand what he meant. But I nodded anyway. That night I picked up the tablet again. Pressed record. Today is day 7, I said. My neighbor gave me chili. I hesitated. I think he knows something is wrong. The next week passed slowly. Mr. Carter kept his promise. Every evening around 6, he knocked on the door with a container of food. Sometimes spaghetti. Sometimes sandwiches. Sometimes leftovers from whatever he had cooked. He never stayed long. Just handed me the container and asked one question. Did you eat today? Every morning I filmed another video. The empty refrigerator. The scale in the bathroom. My journal where I wrote down every meal. I didn't know why I was doing it. But Mr. Carter's words stayed in my head. The truth needs proof. 2 weeks after my parents left, summer school started. My mom had signed me up months earlier. At the time I thought it was because she wanted me to stay ahead in math. Now I realized something else. She probably just didn't want teachers asking why I was home alone. The first morning I walked into the classroom late. My clothes were wrinkled. My hair was tangled. And my eyes felt heavy from another sleepless night. My teacher, Mrs. Alvarez, paused mid-sentence when she saw me. Maya, she said gently. Are you feeling all right? Yes, ma'am. She studied my face for a second longer before nodding. But I could feel her watching me the rest of the class. 3 days later, during math, the room suddenly tilted sideways. The numbers on the board blurred. My stomach twisted painfully. The last thing I remember hearing was Mrs. Alvarez's voice. Maya? Then everything went dark. When I woke up, I was lying on a narrow bed in the nurse's office. A bright light shone overhead. The school nurse sat beside me holding a clipboard. How are you feeling? She asked. Okay, I whispered. She helped me sit up. Did you eat breakfast this morning? Yes. What did you have? I hesitated. Half a ramen packet. Her pen stopped moving. How long ago? About 6 hours. She weighed me. Then she frowned at the number. Maya, she said carefully. You've lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks. My stomach sank. Where are your parents? I stared at my hands. In Europe. And who was taking care of you? The room stayed silent. Mrs. Alvarez stood in the doorway watching us. The nurse sighed softly. Maya, she said gently. You don't have to answer right now. But we are going to figure this out. For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt something strange. Like someone could actually see me. That night my phone rang. The number was international. I answered immediately. Hello? My mother's voice came through sharp and irritated. Maya. I got a call from the school today. My stomach tightened. What did you tell them? Nothing. You better not have, she snapped. I'm in Barcelona trying to enjoy dinner with your father, and now the school thinks something is wrong with you. Mom, I whispered. I'm hungry. You have food in the refrigerator. No, I don't. You're being dramatic again. Her voice dropped colder. Listen carefully, Maya. If you tell anyone anything, Teachers, neighbors, anyone. I will send you to boarding school when we get back. You won't live at home anymore. Do you understand? I couldn't breathe. Yes, I whispered. Good. In the background I heard my dad say something faintly. But he never took the phone. Never asked if I was okay. The call ended. I sat alone at the kitchen table. Then I opened the tablet again. Pressed record. Today is day 15, I said quietly. My mom just called. I held up my phone. She said if I tell anyone the truth, she'll send me away. I looked directly into the camera. I'm not being dramatic. My stomach hurts all the time. I think I'm starving. And somewhere, far away from that quiet house in Austin, the truth had just started moving toward us. By day 16, I had stopped feeling hungry. That might sound strange, but it's true. At first the hunger had been sharp and painful, like my stomach was twisting itself into knots. But after 2 weeks, the pain faded into something dull and heavy. Like my body had simply given up asking for food. I still filmed every morning. The empty refrigerator. The number on the bathroom scale. My notebook where I carefully wrote down every meal. Day 16. 2 slices of bread. Half a ramen packet. Day 17. 1 egg. Half a sandwich Mr. Carter brought over. Day 18. Nothing until dinner. Each video ended the same way. My parents are still in Europe. My mom says I'm being dramatic. Mr. Carter watched me get weaker every day. He didn't say anything at first, but I could see the worry in his eyes. One evening he brought over a container of chicken soup and stood in the doorway longer than usual. Maya, he said quietly. You look pale. I'm okay. He didn't look convinced. You're losing weight. I know. His jaw tightened slightly. I don't think I can stay quiet about this much longer. My stomach dropped. You promised, I said quickly. I know. He rubbed the back of his neck. But there are times when staying quiet does more harm than speaking up. I shook my head. If my mom finds out I told anyone. His voice softened. You didn't tell anyone. I frowned. What do you mean? I could make a phone call. A concerned neighbor, he continued. No names. Just enough to make sure someone checks on you. I looked down at the floor. Part of me felt relief. Another part felt terrified. My mother's voice echoed in my head. Don't embarrass me. Okay, I whispered finally. But don't tell them it was you. Mr. Carter nodded. I won't. The next morning, Mrs. Alvarez arrived at school early. She unlocked her classroom and sat down at her desk with a cup of coffee. The phone rang at 7:42 a.m. She almost ignored it. But something told her to answer. Hello? A man's voice spoke quietly. I'm calling about one of your students. Which student? Maya Thompson. Mrs. Alvarez sat up straight. Yes. I'm a neighbor, the man said. I don't want to give my name. But that child has been alone in that house for over 2 weeks. Her heart skipped. Are you sure? Yes. Her parents left for Europe. Silence filled the classroom. Thank you for telling me, she said slowly. The line disconnected. Mrs. Alvarez stared at the phone. Then she opened the notebook she'd been keeping. Inside were pages of observations she'd written during the past week. Maya arrived late. Same clothes 3 days in a row. Appears fatigued. Nearly fainted in class. Her stomach tightened. Teachers were mandatory reporters. That meant if they suspected abuse or neglect, they were legally required to report it. Ignoring the signs wasn't an option. She closed the notebook. Then walked straight to the principal's office. That afternoon I received an email from the school. The subject line read, Urgent, parent contact required. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, we have concerns regarding Maya's health and well-being. Please contact the school within 48 hours. If we are unable to reach you, we will be required to notify the appropriate authorities. My heart pounded. I immediately called my mom. The phone rang 7 times. Then her voice answered. Maya. I got an email from the school. Yes, she said sharply. They called me too. What did you tell them? That everything is fine. But, Maya. Her voice turned icy. You are embarrassing me. I'm not. You are. I could hear clinking glasses and loud conversation behind her. Probably another restaurant. Do you know how this looks? She continued. The school calling me in the middle of my vacation? I'm hungry, I whispered. You have food. No, I don't. You always exaggerate. Then she added something that made my chest tighten. If anyone asks questions, tell them Mrs. Johnson is watching you. Who's Mrs. Johnson? A babysitter. But. Just say it. She sighed. I swear, Maya, you make everything harder than it needs to be. The call ended. I sat in silence. Then I opened the tablet again. Pressed record. Today is day 19, I said. My mom told the school there's a babysitter. There isn't. I showed the camera the empty house behind me. This is the babysitter. 2 days later, the school called my mother again. She didn't answer. They tried my father. No answer. The principal waited another 24 hours. Still nothing. At that point, there was no choice. A formal report was filed with Texas Child Protective Services. A case was opened. A caseworker was assigned. Her name was Angela Ruiz. I didn't know any of that yet. All I knew was that on day 22, someone knocked on the door again. But this time it wasn't Mr. Carter. It was a woman I had never seen before. She stood on the porch wearing a navy blazer and holding a folder. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat bun. When I opened the door, she gave me a small, reassuring smile. Hi, Maya. Her voice was calm. My name is Angela. I'm with Child Protective Services. My stomach dropped. Behind her, Mr. Carter stood near his mailbox pretending to check the mail. I realized then what he had done. Angela continued speaking gently. May I come in for a few minutes? My mother's voice screamed inside my head. Don't bother anyone. Don't embarrass me. But another voice pushed through the fear. The quiet, exhausted part of me that had been alone for 3 weeks. Okay, I said. Angela stepped inside and looked around slowly. The living room was dim. Dishes were piled in the sink. The house felt strangely empty. Your parents are traveling, she asked. Yes. For how long? A month. And how long have you been here by yourself? I counted silently. 22 days. Her pen paused over the notebook. Who's been taking care of you? I looked down at the floor. No one. She nodded calmly. No shock. No anger. Just quiet understanding. Can I see the kitchen? I led her there. She opened the refrigerator. Inside were 2 slices of bread and a bottle of ketchup. Her eyes moved slowly across the shelves. Then she looked at me again. Maya, she said gently. Do you have anything you want to show me? My heart pounded. For a second I hesitated. Then I went upstairs and grabbed the tablet. I've been recording things, I said. In case no one believed me. Angela took the tablet carefully. She pressed play on one of the videos. On the screen, my face appeared. Today is day 15, Video Me said quietly. I had half a ramen packet. Angela watched the entire clip. Then another. Then another. When the third video ended, she looked up. "You're very brave," she said. "These are important." She closed the tablet and asked a question no one had ever asked me before. "Maya." Her voice softened. "Do you want to be safe?" For the first time since my parents left, the answer came without hesitation. Yes. And somewhere across the ocean, my parents had no idea their vacation was about to collide with the truth. Angela Ruiz came back the next morning. This time she didn't come alone. A police officer stood beside her on the porch, not threatening, just present. He nodded politely when I opened the door. Angela held the same folder from the day before. "Good morning, Maya," she said gently. "May we come in again?" I stepped aside. The officer stayed near the doorway while Angela walked into the kitchen and sat at the table across from me. "I need to ask you a few more questions," she explained. "Is that okay?" I nodded. She opened her notebook. "Have your parents contacted you since we spoke yesterday?" "Yes." "What did they say?" "They told me not to tell anyone anything." Angela wrote that down without reacting. "Did they arrange for anyone to stay with you?" "No." "Did they leave you money?" $20. "And the credit card?" I placed it on the table. Angela turned it over slowly. "Did it work?" "No." She nodded and slipped the card into a clear plastic evidence sleeve. "Okay." Then she asked something that made my throat tighten. "Maya, would you be comfortable staying somewhere else for a little while?" "Like where?" "Your neighbor offered to help temporarily," she said. "Mr. Carter." Relief washed through me so suddenly I almost cried. "Okay." Angela smiled softly. "Good." That afternoon I packed a small backpack. 2 t-shirts. A pair of jeans. My tablet. My journal. And the 2 remaining ramen packets. Mr. Carter noticed them when I opened the bag in his kitchen. "You don't need those anymore," he said gently. He placed them back in the pantry. "You're going to eat real food now." For the first time in weeks, dinner wasn't rationed. He made baked chicken, rice, and vegetables. I finished the entire plate. Angela checked on me twice that evening. Before leaving, she knelt beside the couch. "Maya," she said quietly. "Your parents are coming home in about 8 days, correct?" "Yes." "When they return, things will move quickly." "What do you mean?" "We've already started an investigation." She tapped the folder. "Your videos, the school nurse's report, your teacher's notes, and statements from your neighbor." Her voice stayed calm. "There will be legal consequences." The word legal sounded heavy. "Will they go to jail?" I asked quietly. Angela paused. "That depends on several things. But they will be held accountable." 2 days later, Angela called my mother. I wasn't in the room, but she told me everything afterward. The call started politely. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Angela Ruiz with Texas Child Protective Services." My mother's voice immediately shifted into the sweet tone she used when strangers were listening. "Oh my goodness, is Maya all right?" Angela kept her voice professional. "We've received reports of possible neglect." "Neglect?" My mother laughed lightly. "That's ridiculous. She's alone in the house." "Oh no," my mother replied quickly. "There must be a misunderstanding. She has a babysitter." Angela paused. "A babysitter?" "Yes." "What's her name?" "Mrs. Johnson." Angela wrote something down. "Could you provide her contact information?" There was a long pause. "Of course," my mother said. "I'll email it to you right away." She never sent it. Angela waited 24 hours. No email. No babysitter. No explanation. That was when the investigation escalated. Angela filed a legal request for financial records. 3 days later the bank responded. Angela brought the documents to Mr. Carter's kitchen and sat across from me. She spread several pages across the table. Numbers. Dates. Transactions. Maya, she said carefully. These are your parents' credit card statements from the last month. I looked down at the page. 5-star hotels. Luxury restaurants. Designer stores. Plane tickets. The numbers kept climbing. Angela pointed to the final total. Your parents spent $52,000 during their trip. My chest felt tight. Then she tapped another line. This is the card they gave you. The statement showed 0 transactions. It was never activated, she explained. So it couldn't have worked. I stared at the page. Even though I had known it didn't work, seeing it printed in black ink felt different. Real. Official. They spent $52,000 in Europe, Angela said quietly. And left you with 20. The room was silent. What happens now? I asked. Angela closed the folder. Now we make sure you're safe. And when your parents come home, the police will be waiting. 3 nights later, my phone rang. An international number. My stomach tightened before I answered. Maya. My mother's voice sounded colder than ever. What did you tell them? Mom. Do you understand what you've done? I told the truth. You've destroyed this family. Her voice rose. Everything I built, everything we have. I was starving. You were fine. No, I wasn't. She lowered her voice suddenly. Maya, listen carefully. When your father and I return, you're going to tell them you exaggerated. I'm not. You will. I have videos. The silence on the line lasted several seconds. What videos? I recorded every day. The food. The scale. Your emails. Another long pause. You're lying. I'm not. Something inside me felt different. Stronger. I'm done protecting you. My mother hung up without another word. 3 days later she posted on Facebook. Coming home tomorrow. Can't wait to celebrate with friends and share our amazing trip. Under the post, dozens of people commented. Welcome back. We missed you. Can't wait to hear about Europe. She also mentioned something else. A welcome home party. 40 people had already RSVP'd. Angela showed me the post. Her eyes were thoughtful. Actually, she said slowly. This might work in our favor. What do you mean? If we execute the arrest warrant during the party, we know they'll be home. She paused. And there will be witnesses. I looked at the photo of balloons and champagne glasses my mom had posted. Is that necessary? Angela's expression softened. Sometimes the truth needs to be seen. The night before my parents returned, I couldn't sleep. The house next door glowed softly with lamplight. Mr. Carter had left the porch light on, just in case. Across the street, our house sat dark and quiet. But tomorrow it wouldn't be. Tomorrow the decorations would go up. Guests would arrive. Champagne would be poured. And somewhere down the street, 2 police cars would be waiting. My parents still thought they were coming home to applause and stories about Europe. They had no idea they were walking into the moment that would change everything. The welcome home party started at 6 o'clock sharp. From Mr. Carter's living room window, I watched the first car pull into our driveway. Then another. And another. Neighbors. My mom's friends from her yoga studio. My dad's coworkers from the tech company downtown. People who had liked my mother's photos online. People who believed in the perfect version of our family. By 6:30, the driveway was full. Cars lined both sides of the street. Through the front window of our house, I could see balloons tied to the staircase railing. A banner stretched across the wall. Welcome home. The living room lights glowed warm and bright. Inside, people moved around with drinks in their hands, laughing and talking. On the television, a slideshow played. Photos from Europe. The Eiffel Tower. The Colosseum. A beach somewhere in Spain. Every picture looked polished and beautiful. Every moment carefully chosen. I recognized the dress my mother wore in several of them. A long white dress she had posted about online. Paris shopping spree, the caption had said. Mr. Carter sat beside me in his recliner. You all right, kiddo? He asked quietly. I wasn't sure how to answer. I don't know. Across the street, my mother moved through the crowd. She looked exactly the way she always did in her Instagram photos. Perfect hair. Perfect makeup. A bright smile that never seemed to fade. She hugged guests one by one. Oh my gosh, you have to hear about Barcelona, she said, waving her hands excitedly. Rome was unbelievable. She pointed toward the TV. Wait until you see the pictures from Santorini. Everyone laughed. Someone clinked a champagne glass. Another guest raised a phone to record the moment. The performance had already begun. One of the guests asked something. I couldn't hear the words through the window, but I could read my mother's lips. Maya? She smiled easily. Oh, she's upstairs resting. You know how kids are. A small laugh moved through the room. No one questioned it. No one imagined that the girl they were talking about wasn't upstairs. She wasn't even in the house. The slideshow on the television changed again. Another photo appeared. My parents sitting at a restaurant overlooking the ocean. Wine glasses raised. The caption underneath read, Monaco dinner, best night ever. Mr. Carter sighed softly beside me. You deserved better than that. Before I could answer, something caught my eye. A dark sedan rolled slowly to the corner of the street. It parked beneath a tree where the branches hid most of the car. Another vehicle pulled up behind it. Two officers stepped out. Angela Ruiz got out of the passenger seat. She wore the same navy blazer. The same calm expression. But tonight there was something different in the way she walked. Purpose. Mr. Carter noticed too. They're here, he said quietly. Across the street, my mother lifted a champagne glass. The crowd turned toward her. She was about to give a toast. Then the doorbell rang. My mother walked to the door still smiling. She probably expected another guest. Maybe someone arriving late. She opened it. The smile froze. Angela stood on the porch. Behind her were two uniformed police officers. One male. One female. Mrs. Thompson, Angela said calmly. I'm Angela Ruiz from Child Protective Services. These are Officers Delgado and Harris. We need to speak with you. My mother blinked. Just for a second. Then the performance resumed. Oh, she said with a polite laugh. I'm afraid this isn't a good time. I'm hosting a party. Angela didn't move. This concerns the safety of your daughter. Behind my mother, the living room had gone quiet. 40 people turned toward the door. The slideshow continued silently on the television. Photos of Rome flickered across the screen. My mother stepped outside, trying to close the door behind her. Perhaps we can discuss this privately. Officer Harris spoke. Ma'am, we have a warrant. My mother stopped. You and your husband are being charged with child endangerment under Texas Penal Code 22.041. The words hung in the air. Inside the house, someone gasped. The room fell completely silent. That's ridiculous, my mother said quickly. There must be a misunderstanding. She's upstairs right now. Angela shook her head slightly. No, Mrs. Thompson. Maya is not upstairs. She has been in protective custody for the past 4 days. My mother's smile disappeared. What? Angela opened the folder in her hands. Your daughter was found malnourished and alone in your home for 22 days. We have video evidence, medical reports, and financial records obtained through legal subpoena. Whispers rippled through the guests. My father stood near the television. His face had gone pale. He hadn't said a word. Angela continued. You spent $52,000 on a European vacation. 5-star hotels. Designer shopping. Luxury restaurants. She lifted a page from the folder. The credit card you left with Maya was never activated. She was left with $20 in cash for 30 days. The murmurs grew louder. One of my dad's co-workers stepped closer. Dan, is that true? My father opened his mouth. No sound came out. Then someone stepped forward from the back of the room. Mrs. Alvarez. My teacher. She had been invited because she lived down the street. I'm Maya's teacher, she said clearly. I filed the report. I watched that child come to school hungry and exhausted. What you're hearing isn't an exaggeration. It's the truth. My mother turned toward her. You. But she stopped. Because Officer Delgado had already stepped forward with handcuffs. Mrs. Thompson, he said firmly. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Across the street, I felt my heart pounding in my ears. Inside the house, my mother's voice rose sharply. No. No, wait. This can't be happening. But it was. And the night was only beginning. For a moment, no one inside the house moved. 40 guests stood frozen in the living room, their champagne glasses halfway to their lips. The slideshow on the television continued quietly in the background. Pictures of Paris. Pictures of Rome. Pictures of smiling faces and ocean sunsets. Perfect moments from a perfect vacation. Then Angela Ruiz turned toward the television. Play the video, she said calmly. One of the officers stepped forward with a small remote. The slideshow disappeared. The screen flickered black. Then my face appeared. From Mr. Carter's window, I couldn't hear the audio clearly, but I knew exactly which video they were playing. It was the one from day 15. On the screen, I stood in front of our refrigerator. My hair was messy. My face looked thinner than I remembered. I opened the fridge slowly. Inside were only 2 things. 1 egg. A carton of milk that had already expired. Inside the house, my voice filled the room. Today is day 15, Videomi said quietly. I have $3 left. My parents are in Monaco. The next clip played immediately. Another video. Another day. I stood on the bathroom scale. 82 pounds, I said. I was 90 when they left. My voice cracked slightly. I ate half a pack of ramen today. Someone inside the room covered their mouth. Another guest turned away from the screen. But the video kept playing. Day 18. I was sitting at the kitchen table reading an email out loud. Stop being dramatic, Maya. That's what my mom wrote. She says I have everything I need. The camera zoomed in on the empty counter behind me. Then another clip. Day 22. The final video. I think I'm starving, I whispered to the camera. The screen went black. Inside the living room, the silence was unbearable. My mother's voice broke at first. Turn that off. She looked around the room wildly. She's lying. Angela didn't raise her voice. These videos were recorded on Maya's tablet. They are date-stamped. They match the medical report from her school. Mrs. Alvarez spoke again. I saw her every day. The weight loss. The exhaustion. She nearly fainted in my classroom. My mother's perfect composure started to crack. Her eyes darted around the room. To the guests. To the officers. To the television screen still glowing faintly. Finally she looked at my father. "This is your fault," she snapped. "You never paid attention to her." My father stared at the floor. "You said she'd be fine." "She's 12, he muttered weakly. "She should be able to handle being alone." A woman near the back stepped forward. Mrs. Green. She had known my mother for years. Attended every party. Commented "beautiful family" on every Instagram post. Her expression now looked completely different. Cold. "Handle what, Laura?" she asked sharply. "Starving? You left a child alone for a month. You spent $50,000 in Europe while she lived on ramen." My mother's mouth opened. But nothing came out. For the first time in her life, she had no performance left. Officer Delgado stepped forward again. "Ma'am, you need to come with us." My mother looked around desperately. Searching for someone. Anyone. An ally. A friend. Someone to say it was all a mistake. But the room had changed. 40 people who had once admired her now looked back with something else. Shock. Disgust. Silence. No one moved. No one defended her. No one said a word. The officers placed handcuffs on my parents. Not roughly. Not violently. Just firmly. My mother's shoulders shook slightly. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. My father kept his head down, staring at the floor. They walked them slowly through the living room. Guests stepped aside without speaking. Champagne glasses lowered. Phones slipped quietly into pockets. No one wanted to record this moment. Outside, neighbors had started to gather. People stood on their porches watching. Whispers traveled across the street like wind. The Peterson family. Mrs. Nguyen from 2 houses down. Even the teenagers who usually skateboard near the corner. They all watched as my parents were guided toward the police car. My mother paused beside the vehicle. For 1 second, she looked back at the house. At the banner still hanging in the window. "Welcome home." At the lights glowing through the living room. At the guests slowly drifting out the door. Everything she had built was still there. But it wasn't hers anymore. An officer gently guided her into the back seat. The car door closed. The engine started. Red tail lights glowed as the vehicle pulled away. I watched until it disappeared around the corner. Mr. Carter placed a hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" he asked softly. I thought about the question for a long moment. Across the street, the party was already ending. Guests were leaving quickly. Some avoided looking at the house at all. The champagne table remained untouched. The slideshow had been turned off. The welcome banner fluttered slightly in the evening breeze. Angela walked across the street a few minutes later. She knocked lightly on Mr. Carter's door. When I opened it, she smiled gently. "How are you feeling, Maya?" I searched for the right words. Finally, I said something simple. "I can breathe." Angela nodded. "That's a good start." The street had grown quiet again. The police cars were gone. The neighbors had gone inside. And for the first time in nearly a month, the world felt still. Angela looked at me carefully. "I know some people might wonder if you regret telling the truth." I shook my head. "No." She nodded once. "You didn't destroy your family. Your parents made their choices. You just refused to hide them." I looked out the window one more time at the empty house across the street. For the first time since they left, it didn't feel like a place I belonged to. It just felt like a building. A place where something had happened. And something else was about to begin. The morning after the arrest, the street felt strangely quiet. No cars in the Thompson driveway. No decorations. No banner. The house across from Mr. Carter's looked like any other house again. like nothing had happened there the night before. But everything had changed. I was sitting at Mr. Carter's kitchen table eating scrambled eggs when someone knocked on the door. He glanced toward the hallway. "Expecting someone?" he asked. I shook my head. He opened the door. A woman stood on the porch. Mid-30s. Dark hair tied loosely back. She wore simple jeans and a gray sweater, nothing like the polished outfits my mother used to wear. Her eyes moved past Mr. Carter and found me sitting at the table. "Are you Maya?" she asked softly. I nodded. "I'm Elena Martinez," she said. "I'm your aunt." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. My aunt. The name sounded familiar. My mother's sister. The one we were never allowed to talk about. Mr. Carter stepped aside and let her in. The moment she saw me clearly, her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, sweetheart." She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me. The hug caught me completely off guard. I stood stiff at first. I wasn't used to people hugging me. Then something inside me loosened, and I hugged her back. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know it was this bad." "How did you find out?" I asked quietly. "Your teacher called me," Elena said. "She found my number in an old emergency contact file at the school." She pulled back slightly and studied my face. "I drove here the moment she told me." We sat down at the table together. Mr. Carter poured her a cup of coffee. Elena held my hands across the table. "Do you know why your mother and I stopped speaking?" she asked gently. I shook my head. "Because I told her the truth," Elena said. "I told her she cared more about appearances than about being a real parent." She sighed softly. "She didn't like hearing that. So she cut me out of your life." She squeezed my hands. "But I never stopped caring about you." My chest tightened. "You barely know me," I whispered. Elena smiled faintly. "Then we'll fix that." Angela Ruiz arrived later that afternoon with paperwork. She sat across from us in Mr. Carter's living room. "Elena has filed for temporary guardianship," she explained. "Given the circumstances, CPS has approved it." I blinked. "You mean I can stay with her?" "Yes," Angela said gently. "At least for now." Elena nodded. "I have a small apartment about 40 minutes from here. It's not fancy. But it's safe." That word again. Safe. I realized then how long it had been since I felt it. "Okay," I said. The legal system moved quickly after that. My parents were officially charged with child endangerment. They posted bail within a few days, but the conditions were strict. No contact with me. Not by phone. Not by message. Not through friends. Everything had to go through lawyers and CPS. The evidence was overwhelming. 22 video recordings. Medical documentation from the school nurse. Statements from my teacher. Statements from Mr. Carter. Bank records showing the $52,000 spent during their vacation. And the credit card they left me. The one that had never been activated. Their lawyer tried to argue it was a misunderstanding. An oversight. But timestamps don't lie. Neither do bank statements. Within a week, the story had spread across Austin. A local news station ran the headline. "Parents spend $52,000 on European vacation, leave child alone with $20. My mother's real estate company quietly terminated her employment. My father's company placed him on indefinite leave. Their social media accounts disappeared. But screenshots never do. The perfect family image collapsed overnight. 6 months later, the case went to court. Angela and Elena decided it would be better if I didn't attend. Instead, I stayed home with Mr. Carter while they went. Angela came back that evening with the results. They accepted a plea deal, she told us. 2 years probation. 200 hours of community service. and felony convictions for child endangerment. But the judge's final decision mattered more than anything else. Parental rights revoked, Angela said quietly. The words felt heavy. Permanent. They are no longer your legal guardians. Elena placed her arm around my shoulders. And you're officially part of my family now. Life with my aunt felt completely different. Her apartment in San Antonio was small. 2 bedrooms. A narrow kitchen. A couch that squeaked when you sat down. But it felt warmer than any place I had ever lived. This room is yours, she said on my first day, opening a small door. A bed. A desk. An empty bookshelf. I know it's not much, she added. But you can decorate it however you want. My choice. The words felt strange. No one had ever asked what I wanted before. We ate dinner together every night. Sometimes pasta. Sometimes grilled cheese and soup. Nothing fancy. But she sat across the table and asked about my day. And she actually listened to the answers. I'm not perfect, she told me once. I'll make mistakes. But I promise 2 things. I'll always show up. And I'll always listen. It took time for me to believe her. For the first few months, I still checked the refrigerator every morning. Just to make sure there was food. But slowly, the fear faded. 7 years passed. By the time I turned 18, life looked completely different. I was packing boxes in my bedroom. College acceptance letter sitting on the desk. Full scholarship. Pre-law program. A future that finally felt like my own. I found an envelope in the bottom drawer of my desk. My mother's handwriting. Angela had given it to me years earlier. I had never opened it. I read it that afternoon. It was an apology. Not perfect. Not complete. But real. Another letter had arrived a few months earlier. She wrote that she was in therapy. Trying to understand herself. Trying to become a better person. I didn't know if it was true. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. I folded both letters and placed them back in the drawer. Some answers didn't need to come right away. The day I left for college, I stood on campus watching students move boxes into dorm rooms. Laughing. Meeting new friends. Starting new chapters. I thought about the girl I had been 7 years earlier. The one sitting alone in a quiet house with $20 and an empty refrigerator. The one filming videos because she wasn't sure anyone would believe her. I thought about the moment Angela Ruiz asked me a simple question. Do you want to be safe? And how everything had changed after that. I pulled out my phone and sent Elena a text. Made it. Thank you for everything. Her reply came instantly. Always proud of you. I smiled. Then someone nearby asked if I knew where the library was. A girl about my age, looking lost. I pointed her in the right direction. We started walking together. Talking about classes and majors and the future. The past didn't disappear. It never would. But it didn't control me anymore. Sometimes people ask me if I regret telling the truth. If I wish things had happened differently. My answer never changes. No. I don't regret it. Speaking up didn't destroy my family. Silence would have destroyed me. My parents left me with $20 and a credit card that didn't work. They thought I would be too afraid to say anything. Too desperate for their approval. Too invisible to be believed. They were wrong. I survived that month. I told the truth. And when the consequences came, when the police walked into their party and the image they built finally shattered, it wasn't revenge. It was reality. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who shows up when you need them most. Mr. Carter showed up. Mrs. Alvarez showed up. Angela Ruiz showed up. And my Aunt Elena showed up. The people who truly care about you will never ask you to suffer in silence for them. They will stand beside you. They will protect you. They will listen. My parents left me with $20. But I walked away with something far more valuable. The truth. My voice. And a life that finally belongs to me. If this story meant something to you, subscribe to Women Reddit Stories so you don't miss the next one. There are more stories out there about truth, survival, and the moment people finally realize they deserve better.